Welcome, everyone, to Crew Conversations. I'm super excited to have our next guest, Simone Luthi, who's going to be talking about his career journey and a subject lane that I think is going to be really compelling here today. Before we get into the content and dive into that with him, though, I want him to just give us a quick overview of his career journey so far. So, Simone, officially welcome to Crew Conversations. And if you would, just walk us through your career.
Thanks, Adam. Jazz to be here. So again, my name is Simone Luthi. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for CX Loyalty, which is a JP Morgan Chase company. And I will say I really am pleased and proud to say that I have lived the American dream. So son of Swiss parents, immigrated to the US, gosh, probably 25 years ago or so, and have really started in the travel industry early on in my career, started in call centers and really worked myself up all the way to the C level. And one of the best advices I ever got was from Ken Chenault, former CEO of American Express. And he said, look, if you want to move somewhere, go and take a job that nobody else wants to do. And that's been a little bit of my success, I would say. It required me to move a ton. Yeah, I've really looked back on an amazing career.
So does anything stick out for you in the journey so far? I mean, I know we always feel obligated to say the job we're currently in, but for any reason whatsoever, is there one stop in the career journey so far that just it really means a lot to you? And if so, why?
Yeah, there's probably two that come to mind. I'll start with the more obvious one first. So I was asked in 2019 to join JP Morgan Chase as head of travel. And the question they really asked was, hey, we have this asset on Ultimate Rewards Travel. We feel like there's an asset that we can do way more with. And they were looking for an industry expert that could really take them to the next level. And so I've been working in 19 into the pandemic, really on strategy development of what that would look like to more effectively compete in that space. And I'm pleased to report that then also turned, or the strategy is now being executed with the acquisition of CX Loyalty, the company that I have now joined to kind of look at strategy for travel, non-travel in loyalty and rewards over the next 5 to 7 years. So that's probably from a career perspective, one that I feel like I have had most impact. A lot of it will be seen. I feel like this is something where we just laid the foundation now of something amazing to come. And maybe we'll get a little bit into it afterwards, but I would say the job that I had before, where I could really start to talk a bit about authentic leadership, talk about my health journey, which kind of I felt had more of a positive impact on the employee base, but maybe we'll save that for later.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's great. Yeah, on that note, let's just start digging in. What we talked about getting into here today was, how do you really find and connect with meaning at work and bringing your authentic self to work and leading in that way? And, so Simone, I guess my first question here is, what does that mean to you, right? What is it? How do you even define kind of this concept of having meaning at work and having your authentic self? Do you kind of have a way that you frame that?
Yeah, I would say employees, maybe even more so now today, are intuitive enough that they sniff out if you're fake. And I think the top-down kind of playing the patron of, my way or the highway of, maybe the generation that our parents or grandparents grew up with is just no longer relevant at all. So I would say two things to that. One, really showing up authentically, even when that means that you acknowledge areas where you're maybe not as skilled at. People really tend to appreciate that too. I don't think people look for their boss to be the jack of all trades and do everything. But then also having the freedom to perform underneath that in an area they're super skilled at. I found that to be a really good approach to leadership, and it has served me well. It creates followership. It creates a teamwork. People are more willing to stay late or do additional assignments when they feel like they have meaningful work. And then specifically for me, I had two health crises, one in 15 and then one in 2020. that really kind of brought me back to the meaning of like, why am I doing what I'm doing? And I think many of us have a point in our career where we go, you know what, is this really going to make a difference?
Mhm.
What is my legacy going to be? And in 15 or 16, when I was at American Express in head of product management, I decided that I would kind of come out with my authentic self, share my health journey, not to necessarily, find, um, people feeling sorry for me, but it was really all about talking about how I healed myself and encouraging folks to take care of their bodies. I did meditation, mindfulness workshops at work, talked a bit about food as a healer. And, I thought maybe this is nothing, nothing is going to really change on this. And maybe in 10 years from now, somebody will say, oh, this Simone guy that I reported to one time talked about, food and nutrition. And so I would say that did two things. One, you come across as really being personable, approachable, and authentic. It created conversations on a more deeper, meaningful level. I've had conversations with employees that I would have never thought I could have. And also some really great feedback that I got a couple of years later of folks that were able to heal themselves from autoimmune diseases as a result of just me showing up. So I think, to answer your question, people really look to their colleagues and their bosses and leaders as a way of like showing up authentically, because I think that ultimately, drives, or maybe this is more of the leadership of the future.
Wow. Yeah. So that's powerful. And I assume so you're in good health these days. Things are,
I'm awesome. I'm
yeah,
awesome. Yeah. I
awesome.
truly believe sometimes things happen for you, not to you.
Yeah.
The trick is then to see through kind of the mist and the fog and finding the answers.
Yeah. Now, are you willing to, and it's okay if not, are you willing to go any deeper on that? I mean, to just explain kind of what you really had to go through that obviously that led to the vulnerability aspect that you kind of feel like you were able to unleash at that point? I mean, can you walk us through that journey that you had to navigate if it's not too emotional or
No,
difficult?
I'd be happy to. It's
Yeah.
anybody else that wants to go deeper can go to simonluthi.com. There I
Yeah.
talk a bit about my journey in more detail and the work that I do now. To maybe just summarize, in 15, I got diagnosed or later diagnosed with an autoimmune, and I could no longer get out of bed. I mean, my hands were swollen
Wow.
shut, everything was inflamed, didn't know what was going on. I was in Arizona at the time. You go to Mayo Clinic because that's, the top of the clinic, and they should figure out what was going on. And that's really, the journey for me to health. The doc at the time said, "Hey, take these malaria pills," and he said, "But be careful, you could go blind." And thankfully, he said that, because I was like, "Hey, my eyes are the only thing that are still working at the moment. Why
Wow.
would I mess with that?" And then through serendipitous connections that I've gotten, I ended up in a clinic in Switzerland that finally, did the right tests. It turned out I had a heavy metal toxicity, I had food allergies, I had environmental pollutants and the road to recovery was slower perhaps than if I had gone the Western medicine route, but within about a year I could completely move. So I'm not taking any medication. I'm completely healed. I walk, around with all this, and that really brought up kind of where I see myself going now, probably in my next role, which I would love to be able to change the healthcare in America. But I think in order to do that, I'm really looking to get involved in perhaps HR benefit programs, right, as a head of global wellness, to empower employees to really take care of their mind, their bodies. It's even more so in this fast-paced environment with everybody being on smartphones, to do that. And personally, I feel that's really where I think the new employee loyalty will come from. Companies that have their well-being of their employees kind of on their banner, and I think that's why Elon Musk personally gets it all wrong at the moment. So that's kind of where we're at. Yeah, so maybe I'll stop there, but that has been a profound, or had a profound impact on me, on my life, but also kind of started the trajectory to think through how can we show up as employers, as leaders in a company, and also encourage that there are other ways out there than just popping pills. Now,
Yeah.
again, my path may not be for everybody, but
Yeah.
I do feel like we have a major health crisis with rising healthcare costs and people getting sick. I think we have to relook at this from a different lens.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, there's so much to unpack there. I think I'm curious there when you were talking about, you mentioned that was kind of a year journey, pretty much, that you feel like you went through in this, right, alternative exploration of healing yourself. And so I'm thinking about, how did you do it all, right? I mean, that's a long time. It's a short time in the lifespan, right? But it's a long time in the day to day, you know. So how did you handle that? Because it sounds like you've kind of been inspired massively. There's a lot of gifts and opportunities that you've pulled from that very difficult time of your life. But that was probably a period of time of navigating that. Is anything like, how did you stay motivated, and how did you stay involved in the job stuff day to day, just through that journey?
Yeah, and just to add to that, during that time, I also lost my boss and personal friend Michelle to cancer.
Wow.
So not only did I go through personal health crisis, I had to step up and take an expanded leadership role in the executive leadership of Amex. So it was definitely not an easy time. But I have always believed that the body has an innate ability to heal itself if you give it the chance. I believe Western medicine absolutely has its place. I just personally, for me, felt like it was a time. What is this body trying to tell me, right? And so I really have realized that I wasn't dealing with my stress properly, that I wasn't taking time to go, take care of myself, and also really looked at my entire life as like what's working in my personal relationships and my business relationships in the way that I showed up. And I can't really tell you the one thing except that there was this small little voice inside of me that said, Simone, you just gotta listen again what your body is telling you. You're on the right track. You have the right resources at your disposal, and just be patient. Just be patient as you go through. And maybe if I were to now say what was like the overarching piece, they put me on prednisone just because I couldn't get out of bed, and I was on a business trip in Florida, and I remember that I had heart palpitations and heart racing. I thought I had a heart attack or was going to have a heart attack,
Wow.
which then turned out to be side effects of the steroids that I was under, and that was like for me, nah, I cannot continue. Like I just felt like if you continue on this path, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. And perhaps I'll share this quick story too.
Yeah.
I find it very, very interesting how signposts, guideposts show up in your life, and you kind of go and you have moments you go, wow, how did that connect in my life? I worked for a guy when I was 13 years old. He sold these high-end Macintosh amplifiers. Nobody knew about, what they were. They were supposed to be these great, amplifiers that would reproduce symphony hall type sound in your living room. They were like 20, 30 grand or so. At 13, I'm just dusting shelves, kind of a job in school. Now, fast forward this 40 years or not, about 30 years later, I'm on a business trip coming back from New York to Phoenix, sit in first class. I have a guy next to me that has a little, we all had these Bose headphones that, they were popular at the time with a little, business card on there. And it said Macintosh. And I said, oh, hey, do you work for Macintosh? And I usually never talk to people. I'm like, headphones on, leave me alone, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah, but it's not Mac, the computer. I'm like, I know what that is. He goes, nobody knows what that stuff is. So we started to talk. And it turned out that his wife had passed away a couple of years ago. And, you go through the I'm sorry. And he shared a bit. And the irony of all that was his wife was diagnosed with the same diagnosis that I got at Mayo, went on the medication I refused, and within 5 years, developed other illnesses and passed away. And I'm going, how can you sit next to a guy you start talking because you remembered the company that he's working for, and you needed to kind of almost hear, like for me it was like, man, like I could be dead in 5 years unless I go a different route. And so signs from above, I don't think stuff happens, just totally out of the blue. So I think that was kind of a cool experience to just listen
Yeah.
to kind of guidance.
Wow. And if you're thinking back now to just even 10 years ago or 5 years before this time period to the past 5 years since this moment that's happened for you, how different of a leader do you think you are because of all of this that you've gone through? I mean, can you see it? Would people describe you as an entirely different leader, or is it just nuances? Or I mean, like, because this is life-changing stuff that you're talking about.
Yeah,
How
yeah,
big,
yeah.
how stark is the difference between 2010 and 2020 when you think about your leadership style?
I would say I have always been an empathetic leader. I care deeply for my teams, and that has been evident in all of my roles. But I would say that I am more open to, just realizing that people have stuff going on, whether that is, health and wellness, whether that's personal issues, whether that's, and just being more attuned, to what's happening. Now, obviously, we got to get shit done at work, right? I think
Yeah.
we all can agree with that. But I think there's a way to do this, and we've seen it through the pandemic, right? People felt like we want to work from home. I have more work-life balance, and we've seen productivity go up. So there's no friction anymore the way we thought about it. So for me personally, I would say I have become more intentional in showing up, every day to work. I think I'm not sweating the small stuff as much anymore.
Yeah.
So conflicts for me are just a waste of time. Um, at the same token, I think from a leadership perspective, I would just say do meaningful work, show up in an authentic way, and do what motivates you to get out of bed Monday morning, right? So life's too short. And
Yeah.
perhaps that is part of, even in my career conversations with my team, that I would say, hey, like, are you enjoying this? Or like, where are you going to go? And it's more about strength finding
Yep.
than just, going through the motions.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels like to me, then you've kind of really broadened your focus onto coaching and leading these folks that you work with, the whole person level, right? Versus just in the role they're in and with the symptoms that they show in that role. You're working with them as a human being. It feels like that's at your core now and always on the top of your mind, Is that
Yeah,
accurate?
absolutely. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
fair.
And so the authenticity piece, I mean, I'm assuming based on some of this stuff you're saying you went through, I mean, you're kind of like, it's got to feel like a let it rip phase of life. Would that be an accurate depiction of the way you feel about it? And so I can see how that might lead to feeling like being authentic is not just something that you're thinking about. It's like the only way you kind of want to be.
Oh,
How does
totally,
that?
totally, totally.
Okay.
And I would probably even go a step further, right?
Okay.
So in all of this health crisis, I have started to feel other energies in my hands. So I have become a Reiki master
Yeah.
an energy healer. I guess I would say the alternate way of healing someone, including myself. And for a while, it was a bit like, oh my God, this is another side of me. I can't come out and be, public with this. What the typical, what will people think of me?
Yeah.
And then something interesting happened. I think in 2018 or 19 or so, I just decided I was going to put at least Reiki Master, which is just a facet of what I do, on my LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm just going to come out with this because, I want to be my authentic self 100%, this side, this side, this side. So, and it actually had very interesting conversations with recruiters, with other people, the whole, oh my God, people think I'm crazy, right, has never actually materialized. On the contrary, it has started to get and open up conversations with other people on a more deeper, meaningful level, right? If you think about your
Yeah.
career and people that you work with, sometimes
Yeah.
we just are Monday through Friday, we talk through, and yeah, we talk about football and we talk a bit about what you had for dinner last night. But when do you really talk about, hey, how are you feeling, Adam? How,
Yeah.
how's your wife? How are the kids? And how's it really going?
Yeah.
And being persistent sometimes if you feel like somebody is not doing well, to say, hey, let's go for a walk and unpack that.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, I would encourage anyone that they are authentic in their full authentic self,
Yeah.
right? I think we all struggle a bit with the, am I good enough? And what do people think of us and all that stuff. I think after two of these health crises for me, I think you called it well, let it rip, and just, you know what, I am who I am, and I'm unapologetically go through life and do, want to do meaningful work, and that is way more fulfilling, I think, than
Yeah.
just, doing your job.
Can you break this down for us a little bit? Unpack what being a Reiki master is. I mean, honestly, I don't. I would love to. I mean, share a little bit of whatever you feel like is the good high level version of this work that I can tell you're totally passionate about. Um, how do you do it? What do you believe that it does? Right? Anything that's worth sharing for those of us that don't have a ton of familiarity to it yet.
Yeah, we'll be happy to. I guess the best way to describe it, I mean, Reiki is a word. It comes from Japanese word of life force, and but if you think about it, when you hurt somewhere, you usually go with your hand and touch your shoulder, your hand, or like when a kid falls, like mom usually comes and kisses that spot, or so
Yep.
it is really an ancient healing modality that has just gotten forgotten. It sounds a bit hokey, I know, whenever I talk about this, but it works. I have, and in essence, what Reiki is, you let universal life force flow from, I guess, spirit world through your hands into the body of somebody else, and you activate their self-healing abilities or their body self-healing abilities. Nothing more to it. And I have just seen amazing results. I would say I have people that come to me one time. It's had somebody with chronic nerve pain, one treatment, and it's done. Never had any pain again. I have people that need to come a couple of times, and I have people that it doesn't work at all. Right. So it's not the wonder, hey,
Yep.
this is the new thing, but it is very ancient techniques that we just in the Western world, once science came along, right? We can't prove it. But the interesting study about Reiki is the following. There's a surgeon, I think they're in Chicago, that has realized that there is potential here. And what he does is he has a Reiki master or Reiki practitioner performing, I guess, performing or sending healing energy into
Yep.
a patient that is in the operating room. And what they
Yep.
have found is that they have a 30 to 40% faster recovery rate than when nobody is doing that in the room. So there's something there you cannot
Yeah.
see, you can't really explain it, but it seems to work. So for me, that was just kind of the entry level into doing this work. I could go way deeper, but in essence,
Yeah.
that really is what it's all about.
I love it. I love it. I find this stuff fascinating, and I think it's awesome that you're so passionate about it. And I totally agree with you. I think we totally need to be reinventing the way we think about modern day healing, modern day medicine, modern day addressing of the symptoms, right? Where are those symptoms originating from? So kudos to you, man. It's I wouldn't hold back on that at all, because I think there's a lot of people that can benefit from all of the stuff that you're diving into. I mean, you've already touched on a lot of this. When you're thinking now about legacy, you mentioned the word legacy, and I think the opening question even, and it's just so clear that you just have a broad perspective view of things every day now because of what you've gone through and not just survived, but thrived through. But what is the most important part of the leadership legacy for you at this point? If you think about just that phase of what do you hope people think about you? What do you hope they say about you when you're not around? What is it at this point?
Yeah, I would say that I would hope that people say that Simone really sees me, or really has an innate ability to kind of connect with my purpose and what's happening, and that he cares deeply about me as a person, and that he creates an environment of inclusion, of diversity, and perhaps also creating opportunities that normally wouldn't be there. And I think at the end of the day, it's really about are you excited to jump out of bed Monday morning and do what you do, or is it a grind? Listen to yourself, listen to your body, listen to what's kind of your surrounding. And I would say that to me is sort of the biggest encouragement that I would have, and also hope that people would say about me, that I give them the encouragement to kind of come to me and say, hey, something's off, can we talk about it? Or hey, I'm
Yeah.
feeling something, can we unpack that together? Because I think that ultimately will drive more authenticity, at the workplace. And then
Yeah.
perhaps the other piece to me, which is interesting, is I'm a firm believer of a strengths-based leadership.
Mhm.
So I don't know, it rubbed me the wrong way with these development plans early on, even when I was in Switzerland, when, hey, this is a great thing from America, it's coming now, and we're doing development plans. But if you think about it, in lots of our performance topics and or performance coaching that we had with our bosses, there is 10% of, yeah, you did a great job, and here's some areas that you could work on.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, one of my favorite quotes is that if you try to teach a fish to climb its tree, it would feel stupid its entire life, right? And are we, I'm not saying we shouldn't be lifelong learners, but what I am saying is if you understand the strength of your team and you start to amplify those strengths, man, I have seen team performing at a much, much, bigger level. So I'm not a big fan of these development plans and like, oh, these areas you should work on, because I think you're wasting time and potential
Yeah.
versus really kind of like diving into and what you're super good at. So
Yeah.
I've had some interesting conversations with leaders, not yelling matches, but big disagreements on this topic. But it's interesting that there are now larger companies that seem to be going this way, like IKEA is one that I heard,
Mhm.
and others that are starting to see that strengths-based leadership really is something we should pay attention to.
Yeah. No, I mean, I totally get it. I agree with you. I mean, it's people, I mean, no matter what you read about, most people need like a 5-to-1 ratio, 3-to-1 ratio minimum of kind of positive energy to them, positive, right? Comments and thoughts to the negative, because the brain is just, the negative is like it's Velcro, right? Anything that's constructive and negative and all of that. And the positivity just bounces off like Teflon. And so you have to have that constantly in mind, right? If you're trying to work with people and you're trying to have them leave motivated, leave wanting to be their best and all of that, there's got to be different ways of doing it than the traditional ways. So I love what you're talking about, unleashing and helping them learn how to let it rip too, right? From
Right.
the positive side. And I'm thinking about that legacy question too that you're talking about, and I was going to ask you, how do you take what your transformative experience has been and feel like you can authentically give it to somebody else so that they have the meaning at work? That's one of the lowest things. I work with teams all the time, and if they self-assess, purpose, meaning, right, is of like the four main pillars that I'm off normally working with groups on, is the lowest self-assessed one. And so, and I know that's your passion, and that clearly is what you think will be and hope to be your legacy. So I think you've answered it, but how do you give someone else? Because it's easy for me to hear Simone go through this thing and think, well, yeah, that's amazing. I can see how that's transformed his life. But people that are just going through the regular challenges, we don't want to trivialize them, but the regular everyday challenges, to get that level of gumption and conviction towards a meaning at work mentality and an authenticity at work mentality, is it just through the constant modeling of it and the open door access, like you've mentioned, or what else can you do to help people really feel like they can tap into this before they may hit a moment like this? And hopefully they don't, right? But or if they never do, right? Like you get what I'm saying? I don't know if I'm.
Yeah, no, I think so. I would say, when you think a little bit about human design, and even kind of enneagrams, right? So I think
Yeah.
anyone should go through kind of a strengths finder, class and or human design, or know your enneagram, because I
Yeah.
think once you know what your North Star is and also kind of what the shadow side is from that,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
understand at least like what's driving you. It's not necessarily ego per se, but it's just kind of. So I'm an enneagram too. I'm a giver. I'm a nurturer. I'm a caretaker. But that also then, translates into I'm always, looking after other people, and I started to neglect myself, like I said before. Understanding that I'm always somebody that is, deeply caring. I also have to care about myself, right? And so I think understanding your enneagram and then also knowing kind of what the flip side of that is, so that you can perform, in both of those areas, will be probably a big step, that I think anyone should go through. Because I think sometimes I see this with my kids as well. They have a college degree they thought they wanted to do, and now that they find themselves at 24, 25, 26, and they're like, oh shit, what am I going to do with this
Yeah.
degree now, right? And kind of flipping things around. There's nobody really there to catch you at that point to like go, all right, so you went through school, you saw kind of in your topics and things, whether you were good in English or whether you're good in math, and then you kind of take a trajectory, but that doesn't really talk about your passion. So I think there's a moment in time where everyone should go through understanding, hey, what am I motivated by? What am I passionate by? And then how can I bring kind of the skills I've picked up along the way, bring that in. And I mean, I'm sort of in this transitionary mode now where I'm going, hey, I actually, like I said before, I would love to be, head of global wellness somewhere, and really starting to take my experience and everything that I brought with me, leadership, product management,
Yeah.
account management, sale, all that stuff. But like actually my North Star, my focus is really the well-being of people. That has never changed. But
Yeah.
I'm trying to channel that now into an area that I feel I'm super, super passionate about. And perhaps, like you said, it's do I check in once a year on like, am I doing meaningful work? And if not, right,
Yeah.
what's driving me and how can I change that? And without, and there's a bit of fear, like how do I apply my skills into a
Yeah.
new vertical, into a new area? Um,
Yeah.
so I don't know whether that makes sense, but that's sort of, what comes up for me right now.
It does. It does. I mean, the answer I take away from that is I think the power and the importance of stopping at some point, doing something to go through a deep introspection process about the way you're operating, why you're operating that way, how you want to be operating. Right? I think we just get going so fast. So things like you went through forces the mind and the body to stop. So helping as a leader, right? People remember that even if you're not going through something like that, you have to create your own stop and pauses and reflection components in life, because otherwise you're going to wake up and decades are going to blow by, right?
Right.
Or
Yeah.
or while you're busy planning, the life continues to happen, and who knows. So that's the main takeaway. I think it's clear that you help people do that, and that's a powerful leadership piece. So Simone, we've obviously tried to kind of get this community off the ground, the concept of crew, and a big part of this, which I don't know how well we're really hitting through with this when it comes to just the soft launching and the branding that we've done so far. But if I'm being honest, it's about supporting people at the whole person level. And it's about cultivating an atmosphere that lets that piece flourish, because we know that the average company and the average job and the average executive doesn't have a lot of white space for this category in this room, So that's what we're trying to do. And we're super thankful that folks like you have kind of joined us on this journey so that we can keep bringing in all these different perspectives and experiences, right? And learn from each other and help each other stay encouraged about keeping that whole person support system top of mind. Anything else that's just from your perspective, the why you're kind of joining this, and what about what we're trying to do is inspiring for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the simple answer to that is, obviously your dad, Andy, and I
Yeah.
have been, he's been my boss, been my friend, confidant, mentor. So when he mentioned that you and he were starting this, I mean, it was like, okay, of course I'm in, right? I mean, I wanted to support you guys in the mission. But what was interesting to me, I didn't really know too much about it, but I just intuitively felt like, okay, this is where you belong. And what's interesting is, right, many of us have landed a job and then you go, oh shit, now I have to figure out how to actually do the job, right? And you can't really talk to your boss about it. You can't really talk internally. Maybe you could. Maybe this is also something like corporate America needs to change. But like, let's face it, right? We all have been in that. And then you go, all right, who do I talk about it? And I find this network of individuals that are equally passionate about making the business world a better place and starting to network more from an authentic level and having conversations like this conversation we're having, I think is super, super powerful, right? And I see that getting lost, even in some of the LinkedIn's. Yeah, of course, there's the posts and all that stuff, but really kind of go back to the one-to-one authentic connection and connection in business, right? That goes deeper than just talking about Sunday football, right?
Yeah.
That is what really motivated me to be a part of it. Plus, be in a kind of startup mode of starting something from scratch, being able to influence and help perhaps other people be inspired with what I went through. I didn't have to think twice. I think I signed up probably after 5 minutes of hearing his pitch. So
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. No, that is awesome. And yeah, I think you're hitting the nail on the head of what we're trying to do. And it's only going to happen because of individuals like you coming in and helping us pave this mission and provide the support and the resource diversity that's required, right? That, yeah, it's hard today. Digital acquaintances are one thing. We're all moving around in our jobs a lot more. We're all thinking about the big picture a lot more post the last couple of years. That was a lot of people's version of something similar, not nearly as extensive as what you went through, but people are thinking differently, right? And I think that we have to think differently about things like networking too, right? And so anyhow, we're super grateful, Simone, for this, for your endorsement of coming in here and giving us a shot, as well as having the time to just chat with you and dig into subjects that you're passionate about, leadership, non-leadership. I mean, that's what this is all about. So thank you for being an open book, and thanks for joining this crew conversation. I know it was really fun for me, and I'm willing to bet it's going to be fun for others to listen to as well. So appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Glad to be a part of it. Thanks for allowing me to share a little bit about my career and insights, and looking forward to next steps.
Sounds
and
great.
Where we're going to take this together. So it's awesome.
That's right. Thank you, sir. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Crew Conversations. These conversations are for leaders, between leaders, and by leaders to inspire you to grow into the type of leader you want to become.